In October 1998, the scientific establishment of parapsychology was contacted by Manchester's Public Relations Office in regards to disturbances that were taking place at a former Ministry of Defence building. Problems arose when staff refused to work through the late hours or in certain areas of the building. Clearly, whatever was going on at the large 14-storey building situated in Deansgate, Manchester, UK, had a managerial disaster. Debbie, who works at Sunlight House, claimed that she and her close working associates had witnessed their clothes being pulled or tugged by unseen hands. Also, she claimed to have witnessed cold air coming from a bookcase that had a hard backing on it. This was apparently investigated by the floor manager and no rational explanation could be found. Debbie also claimed to have possibly witnessed an apparition in her work area, passing backwards and forwards between a screen near the reception area of her office, and that whilst on the lavatory she experienced something that scared her so much she considered leaving her job. She explained, "I'd gone to the lavatory and whilst in there on my own sat on the toilet, I heard someone walking about. I was sat there quietly. I hadn't heard anyone come in through the door as it usually squeaks a little. It sounded like heavy boots. I coughed on purpose so to let whoever it was know I was in there, just in case it was a workman doing some sort of repair. It went quiet again. Then I heard the loud footsteps come closer. I looked down and saw two large boots under the cubicle door. They were definitely men's boots. Suddenly, they moved right up to my door. I was absolutely petrified. I screamed out, 'Go away!' but he just stayed there. Then something really weird happened. The boots moved forward, his feet right now under the cubicle door. I couldn't understand it. They were so far under that I should have seen his torso coming through the cubicle door, but there was nothing. I could only see the boots poking under, which was slightly moving. I screamed and screamed. A minute or so later, the boots moved back away from the door. I heard him walk off towards the sinks. I sat there shaking. I was no way going to open that door. But eventually, I realized that no one was going to come, so I took off my shoe and held it in my hand to throw at whatever it was. I opened the door and peeked outside. I couldn't see anyone. I walked towards the sinks, but no one was around. I even looked under all the cubicle doors, but I was on my own. I just ran for it. I'm no way ever using those toilets again. At that point, I had enough. I told my husband I didn't want to work here anymore. Whatever it was scared me to death. On another occasion, Debbie was photocopying paperwork when she saw a hand move on her left side. At first she thought it was just her imagination. She turned to see an apparition of an old man looking back at her. She described him with difficulty. She said, "It was as if I was looking at a reflection in a well-lit window, i.e. not very clearly defined. The apparition just faded away." Debbie has reported feeling uneasy, sometimes as if the environment has changed in some way. Mr. Turner, another Sunlight House employee, claimed to have entered the building on a late evening, and whilst on the 8th floor, the lights suddenly turned off, leaving him in darkness. Then suddenly, he heard a rasping male voice about 3 feet behind him, which he described to make a grunting sound. Mr. Turner ran into the darkness, bumping into walls on his way. He got to the elevators and called them. It seemed to take ages to arrive. He quickly jumped in and headed down. The elevator shook from side to side as it descended. Suddenly, for no reason, the elevator stopped and opened on the 7th floor into yet again darkness. Mr. Turner hammered the button and the doors shut once again. He eventually reached the ground floor and the elevator doors opened. He quickly vacated the building. Mr. Turner also complained to have heard the elevators working on their own and hearing bangs and other strange noises. Sally Burns is another witness to the strange activities at Sunlight House. She claimed to have stayed the night with a friend, Linda, in the 13th floor flat of the Sunlight House. She was woken from sleep by a knocking sound on the front door as if someone was there. Sally knew that no one else was in the building who could be responsible. She remembered the atmosphere feeling very uneasy. Sally stayed put and didn't dare answer the door. She decided to ignore it as best she could and hope it would stop. Eventually, Sally's friend Linda also woke up and both stayed together whilst the knocking persisted. The 13th floor flat was only used by managers when staying late at the office. The flat could occasionally be utilised. Mr. Brian Mallon was a night security officer at the Sunlight House during a time of alterations, March 1995 to November 1996. He and his working associate, Fred Walker, claimed to have witnessed paranormal activity throughout the building. The security officers made notes for each other, which gave mention to several interesting incidents. Our ghost followed me down the stairs from floor 4 to 1 at around 03:15 hours. This time, he was not solid, just a shape and a hair-pricking sensation. I stopped on level 2 to try and talk to him. Again, he vanished and the hair-prickling sensation stopped. It's midnight, dark and eerie. Funny noises, doors creaking, vague footsteps in the corridor. It's great, is it not, Sean? 03:20 hours, I hear a bong-bong sound from an elevator somewhere. Who or what is using it? Billy, workman didn't turn up. Checked every quarter of an hour at the reception. No show. True story, Steve. I went into the gents to have a strip wash at approximately 01:30 hours. I turned on the taps near the mirror and took my shirt off when suddenly the end of each tap with the white filter and black washer dropped into the sink. Steve, you have to unscrew the tap ends a long way before they come off. It's the spook's way of saying, "Hi, I'm still here." I didn't ask it to scrub my back. I just grabbed my shirt and moved fast. Later, I screwed the ends back on. Brian claimed to have witnessed various apparitions of a man he described as having black curly hair and wearing a tank top pullover. The apparition was first sighted on the metal staircase, making his way to the second floor. This drew Brian's attention because at that time the second floor was unoccupied. Brian immediately pursued him, expecting to catch up with him negotiating the two doors. You have to enter one of the doors by entering a code. Bob questioned whether he was seeing things, as he had not heard the doors opening or closing. However, he carried on to the second floor offices and followed the figure. When sighted, this figure either disappeared through a wall or vanished. SCP investigators did attend the building overnight to set up numerous pieces of equipment to help monitor the environment. Practically as soon as they had set up equipment around the building, videos and photographic cameras started to fault. Video cameras reported having battery faults. Even photographic cameras experienced film jamming and battery drain. Remote monitoring stations were set up and left for a period of several hours while investigators continued to patrol the large 14-floor building. Elevators were seen to act strangely. Throughout the night, it looked as if they were being used. Called from different floors not in use. An investigation carried out by elevator engineers found nothing and explained if they were traveling to different floors and doors were opening and closing, then someone must have been using them. SCP investigator David Scholes reported an unusual experience whilst on the 4th floor. He and another investigator suddenly felt the air pressure change around them. You could feel the pressure change in our ears, and at that moment I decided to take a few photographs, David explained. What was captured I can't explain, though it looks like something was caught in front of the lens, like a camera strap or something similar. It couldn't have been, as we always put the straps over our heads. I'm not too sure as to what the white wispy thing is, but it was captured at the very same time the air pressure changed, said David. As the weeks passed, further reports flooded in from numerous floors. Staff regularly saw football-sized balls of lights moving about the building. Keith Williams and Janet Bordley were both working on floor 8 when they watched a large ball of white light move across the office, over one of the desks, and travel towards the open door. As soon as it went past the door, it took a sharp right turn and traveled down the corridor. These balls of light are intelligent. They move in a way that suggests they know where they're going, said Keith. CCTV footage of the balls of light had also been captured in flight on numerous occasions. Current documentation on Sunlight House listed the owner's name as Mr. Joe Sunlight. However, further research showed information that gives his real name as Joseph Sokovsky, a Russian Jew who came to England to make it big, and he certainly did that. Apart from building the Sunlight House, Mr. Zhukowski wanted to build an even larger building. He had plans drawn up and was to name the huge building the Sunlight Skyscraper. Unfortunately, he was declined planning permission by the Borough of Manchester, so the construction never went ahead. The building is of a unique design, with huge metal girders driven into the ground and constructed in a similar way to a huge antenna. Underneath the building lies a crisscross of waterways which were once used to ferry goods from one place to another. It's generally thought that due to the building's design and position of electrical systems, coupled with water running underneath it, may attribute to the disturbances. The reason for such an active haunting is unclear. It's seemingly relentless despite all efforts to appease the spirits, leaving Sunlight House very much a haunted location and SCP investigators scratching their heads.